sent a congratulatory message to the Sidama people on the occasion of their traditional New Year celebration of Fiche Jambalala. Wednesday, the Sidama, who recently secured their quest for a statehood after a referendum, are celebrating the Fiche, or the Eve of the New Year, while Thursday is the main event of the Jambalala. Prime Minister Abiy urged the people to be vigilant for peace and togetherness while celebrating the festivity. Fiche Jambalala is a symbol of unity and togetherness, celebrated among the Sidama people. The Sidama people observe the movement of the stars to celebrate the new year. Fiche Jambalala was registered by UNESCO as World Intangible Heritage some 8 years back. Following on that, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Demek Amakonnen held discussions with Hungary's Foreign Affairs and Trade Minister Peter Szijjártó. The Hungarian Foreign Affairs Minister and Trade arrived in Addis Ababa for an official visit. He discussed with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Demek Amakonnen and various government officials in order to strengthen multifaceted cooperation and ties between Hungary and Ethiopia. The two sides also discussed ways of deepening bilateral and multilateral diplomatic ties. Ethiopia and Hungary have more than 6 decades of diplomatic relations and bilateral cooperation, it was indicated. Briefing journalists after the discussion, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Mellis Alam said Hungary's foreign minister visit to Ethiopia ushers new diplomatic era between the two countries.
Hungary's foreign minister and his delegation visit were very helpful to strengthen ties between Ethiopia and the European Union. The foreign minister's visit showed that Ethiopia is growing out of the crisis it has faced and moving towards a new diplomatic path.
The spokesperson underscored that Ethiopia has a significant role to maintain peace and security in the region, adding that the way Ethiopia solved its own problem is an exemplary for neighboring regions and beyond.
In order to resolve its domestic disputes and implement the pre-Tory peace deal, the Ethiopian government is making outstanding efforts to stabilize peace and security throughout the country.
Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Ethiopia, Yevgeny Terhin, said that the diplomatic relationship between Ethiopia and Russia was established in 1898, a couple of years after the historic Adwa victory. And since then, the two countries have been enjoying time-tested relations. According to Fana Broadcasting Corporation, Ambassador Yevgeny Terhin said that the first Russian medical team arrived in Ethiopia in 1896, months after the Battle of Adwa, and treated thousands of wounded Ethiopians. And this laid the foundation for the thriving cooperation between the two countries in several socio-economic spheres such as health and education. When Ethiopia was invaded by fascist aggression in 1935, the Soviet Union was the first country that strongly condemned the aggression in the League of Nations, he added. The 125 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries has passed a long and great journey in both good and bad times. And this has helped the two nations broaden their cooperation in multifaceted areas of cooperation, the ambassador pointed out. The visit of Emperor Haile Selassie to the Soviet Union in 1959 was the phenomenon which served as a basis for modern diplomatic relations between the two nations. Russia founded Bahir Dar Polytechnic Institute in 1966 and Melkawak Anna Hydroelectric Dam in 1989 and established a number of vocational education and training institutes in different parts of Ethiopia and a way to foster bilateral cooperation with the nation, he indicated. The ambassador added that more than 23,000 Ethiopian students attended their higher education in universities of Russia and are still facilitating free scholarships for Ethiopians to enhance collaboration in the education sector.
Mubarak.
Welcome back. East Africa Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration Project, or EASTRIP, carried out in collaboration with the World Bank, has been creating a conducive environment to enhance regional integration in the area of technical and vocational trainings. EASTRIP is a relatively new platform that, with a good collaboration from every stakeholders, which by 2026, when successfully completed, the platform is estimated to bear positive results, ETV learned. Tigistar Nessa brings us up to speed.
According to the 2015 World Bank Enterprise Surveys, over 25% of the formal firm surveyed in sub-Saharan Africa identify an inadequate educated workforce as a major constraint, and over 29% of all production workers are rated unskilled workers by these firms. Shortage of specialized technical and vocational education and training, TVET, skills is particularly acute in transport, energy, manufacturing, including agro-processing and ICT, and this could slow the industrialization agenda. The East African Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration Project, ESTRIP, is a 5-year project funded by the World Bank and the government of Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania to improve access and quality of TVET programs offered by selected regional flagship TVET institutes starting 2019. East African Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration Project, ESTRIP, being carried out in collaboration with World Bank, has been creating conducive environment for an enhanced regional partnership in the area, technical and vocational trainings. Pertinent bodies from Tanzania, Kenya, and Ethiopia are gathered here in Addis Ababa to evaluate the successful implementation of ESTRIP project. Technical and Vocational Training State Minister at the Ministry of Labor and Skills, Tashala Berricha, urged for regional cooperation from all member countries and stakeholders.
I would like to urge all implementing partners to strengthen the collaboration and relations between the countries so that we can capitalize on our achievement and we can easily resolve our challenges.
Professor Idris A. Rai, Deputy Executive Secretary at Inter-University Council for East Africa, for his part stated that the whole idea of the flagship is to create youth that would contribute to the development for their respective nations.
So the idea here is, the whole idea of this, of the project, is to build skills, young skilled labor that can employ themselves, but also that can support the development of the nation. And TVET has been forgotten for a long time. Even us as IUSA, Inter-University Council of West Africa, we've been largely focusing on universities since establishment in 1970s. But now our mandate has been expanded, and we are looking as well coordinating activities on TVET as well.
World Bank representative to ESTRIP Execution Xian Liang indicated that the World Bank has been facilitating, financing, and putting in place best technical advice.
The program is led by 3 governments, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania. We are only a facilitator. We are a financier and facilitator. We try to bring the best technical advice also to the countries and to the colleges. Ultimately, we hope good practices from ESTRIP, including how we work with industries, how we work with fellow institutions and fellow countries. How do we generate better skills and better employment outcomes for our graduates? Ultimately, we hope these good practices will spread across the continent.
ESTRIP is a relatively new platform that, with a good collaboration from every stakeholder, which by 2026, when successfully completed, the platform is estimated to be with positive results, it will learned.
The Ethiopian Electric Utility, or EEU, has disclosed that activities are being undertaken to provide electric power to more than 200 rural towns far from the national grid. It is stated that EEU, in collaboration with non-governmental organizations and associations engaged in the sector, has started activities to provide electric power to more than 200 rural towns that are far from the main grid. It is also said that the National Electrification Program is working to provide 65% of the required electric power from the main grid and 35% from alternative energy sources to the population of the 200 rural towns. EEU indicated that a total budget of $400 million has been reserved for the projects, according to FBC. The project aims to provide economic benefits to people living in the areas of the country far from the main grid and to ameliorate their livelihood, EEU further indicated. Welcome back. You're still watching at this news hour. The Russian energy company Roshydro has expressed keen interest to invest in the energy development sector in Ethiopia. Representatives of Roshydro held a virtual discussion with the Water and Energy Minister of Ethiopia, Habtamu Ittefa, on how to explore immense potential in Ethiopia in the energy sector. The minister said that Ethiopia's power supply is below 50% despite the immense renewable energy potentials in the country, stressing the need to build production capacity to boost power link in the region. Roshydro's representatives, for their part, expressed their readiness to invest in Ethiopia by applying their long experience in the area. Roshydro has already engaged in energy production in various African countries. The Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, or AFCFTA, said the deal plays a vital role to reintegrate Africa and capitalize Africa-made products. The Secretary General, Wamkele Mene, also said that AFCFTA is the last opportunity for African economic transformation. He urged African governments to avoid bottlenecks and enhance ease of doing business to benefit from the pact. Take a look.
The African Continental Free Trade Area is the world's largest free trade area, expected to connect 1.3 billion people across 55 countries. Talking to ETV, the Secretary General of the AFCFTA stated that the regional free trade area has been exerting efforts to reduce tariffs and non-tariff obstacles while giving priority to the economy of the region.
The big challenge that we have as Africans is to break this colonial economic model. And the way to do that is by boosting intra-Africa trade, ensuring that we create a self-sufficient regional value chain system in Africa, create supply chains in Africa, and without disconnecting from global supply chains, because we cannot. But at the moment, we are in a very difficult situation, which has been underscored by the COVID-19 pandemic, that when global supply chains are disrupted, Africa is not able to provide herself with self-sufficiency.
The Secretary General pointed out the continent contributes a minimum amount to the world economy. He urged cooperation is essential among African nations.
Africa's contribution is relatively small, even though we're 17% of the world's population. And studies indicate that this is directly as a result of lack of industrial capacity, manufacturing capacity. The market is there, 1.3 billion people, but the productive capacity from a manufacturing point of view, an industrial point of view, there's still a long way to go. There's not, when I say there's not a single country that can be globally competitive, what I mean is this, that even an industrialized economy, the most industrialized economy in Africa, will still require an export market, will still require to import products or services from other African countries. The barriers that have existed and that continue to exist have actually contributed to that lack of growth of the African market.
Given the lack of manufacturing capacity for both the continental and global economies, the AFCFTA should give more emphasis on developing the integrated intra-African market.
Let's take, for example, the area of pharmaceuticals. In the year 2019, Africa imported $16 billion worth of pharmaceuticals because we don't have the productive capacity, because we are not an integrated market, amongst other reasons. Where we are able to consolidate a market and establish regional value chains for the pharmaceutical sector, or even establish regional value chains for the auto sector, we will be able to have an inclusive trade agreement on the one hand. On the other hand, we will be enhancing our own manufacturing capacity, a regional value chain that is spread out throughout the continent, the processing of leather in Ethiopia, the processing of rubber in Liberia, the processing of and the assembly of the vehicle in Morocco. Continental value chain is what will enable us to have an inclusive trade agreement.
According to the Secretary General, AFCFTA aims to boost trade between African nations with authentic products created on a continent rather than continuing the neo-colonial tradition of Africans selling commodities mostly made elsewhere in the world.
Conakry is the capital of Guinea, a country in West Africa. A port city, it serves as the economic, financial, and cultural center of Guinea and is the largest city in the country. Manufacturers in the city include metal manufacturers, cement, food products, and fuel products.
Welcome back. And finally, the Sudanese capital shook Tuesday night under gunfire and explosions on the fourth day of a power struggle between two generals, still indifferent to calls for a ceasefire after fighting that nearly left 200 people dead. The sound of fighting was still resounding in various parts of Khartoum, according to several witnesses. The RSF accused the army led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who has been in charge since the 2021 coup, of violating the truce, while their own men continued to fire heavy weapons in the streets, witnesses said. Military planes are still flying over the city and have already hit 4 hospitals in Khartoum, doctors said. Across the country, one of the poorest in the world where healthcare has been on its knees for decades, 16 hospitals are now out of service. The Red Cross and the World Health Organization have called on the warring parties to ensure access that is in need, as fighting is concentrated in Khartoum and the western Darfur region. Now a recap of the headlines before we go. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed extends best wishes on the occasion of the Fiche Jambalala New Year for the Sidama people. And fighting continues in Sudan despite truce. Well, that brings this news hour to the end. Thank you once again for having joined us. It's goodbye from my end.